Broadcasting live, brother. Welcome back to Talkin Boxing with Billy C on the mighty TPSradio.net, brother. What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin Boxing with Billy C show. Hey man, don't forget to follow us on Twitter. It's at Talkin Boxing. Let me spell it for you. TalkinBoxing. We're looking to get 10,000 followers, and we're more than halfway there. So if you're not following us, follow us and get your friends and family and your cousins and your uncles and your brunkles, all of them. Get them all to follow us on Twitter at Talkin Boxing. Joining us right now, Boxing Hall of Famer, my man, Larry Hazzard. What's up, Larry?
Hey, Billy, what's going on, buddy?
Well, I don't know. You know, we got some big fights coming up this weekend, and we just had another fight of the century come and go last week. I know you got some thoughts on it. Floyd Mayweather against Manny Pacquiao. It was anticlimactic. We kind of said that along the way, but I drank some Kool-Aid around the last, I would say, 8 to 10 days leading up to the fight. I really thought Mayweather was going to come out and do what we were hoping he would do, and you know, give us an entertaining fight. Instead, he dominated. I mean, he won the fight. There's no question about it. He made Manny look ordinary at best, and I won't use the excuse that Manny hurt himself. I think he should have postponed the fight if he was injured. I'm sure Floyd would have. All of that stuff. What's your thoughts on the whole event, man?
Well, I agree with what you just said, but fight of the century, I'm glad we got 85 years left, okay, this century, because as far as I'm concerned, it was the hype of the century. I'm still waiting for the fight, all right? But as you can recall, when we first started talking about this fight, when it was first made, remember, Billy, I said back then, okay, and I'm not a rocket scientist, okay, but I said, this is an ordinary fight. I said, people are going to be very disappointed, okay, that this fight is not going to come anywhere close to what people will be expecting. As you can recall, I started using the analogies of Sugar Ray Leonard and some of the other fights, the Hearns, Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, you know, that whole mixture of those four kings, okay? And that's what it turned out just to be, you know. So everybody, you know, a lot of people are disappointed, and that's the result of the expectation. I'm not disappointed because I really didn't expect anything other than what I saw. You know as well as I know, we talk about it all the time, Billy. But these, you know, in order for you to have a great fight, one, a great fight is dependent upon the collective skills of the two fighters and their willingness to engage. That's the ingredients for a great fight. Now, certainly, Floyd Mayweather is a great defensive fighter. Manny Pacquiao, he's a fighter who's, you know, has some good offensive skills. But the one thing that's missing, that all great fights need, is the fighters willing to engage one another in combat. Okay? Here you got the fight of the century. I don't even know if either of those guys suffered a bleed. There were no knockdowns. There certainly were no situations that were close to knockdowns. I don't even remember any memorable exchanges by either fighter. So it is what it is. I certainly wasn't disappointed because I thought that Floyd would win big after the second or third round. You know, I started dozing off again, and then I woke up, you know, because it was such a great evening, and I had a lot of people, you know, at my house watching it, and that's the way it was, Billy. I mean, you know, what else can I say?
No, I mean, you're right. You know, here's what I'm getting. You know, a lot of people feel that the fight, hurt the sport rather than help it. And to a degree, I agree with that. When you start looking at all of the momentum we seem to have with the fights, like people like you brought up last time you were on the show, people are talking about it at the store, in the barbershop, at the gas station, it just, people are talking about boxing, and it wasn't, a lot of people obviously were focusing on this fight, but they were also talking about, got to get home, there's some fights on NBC at 8 o'clock, there's some fights in the afternoon, so, you got all this momentum, and I felt that this fight had the capabilities. All it had to be, regardless of who wins or loses, right? There had to be something exciting. And you alluded to it. Nobody had a nosebleed. Nobody was puffed up. It didn't look like either one of them were in a fight at the end of the night. A knockdown, a cut, something that would, get you into it. And I think it's kind of pushed fans away, at least fans that were willing to give boxing another chance. And some of the diehard fans say, good riddance, we don't need them. I'm not so sure if we don't need them. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, boxing never ceases to sort of injure itself. I think that we're still excited about the sport. These two guys still did a lot to rekindle the interest in our sport. And then there's still some exciting fighters still out there. I think, though, what happened is that most people expected too much, and then now in the aftermath, here's Pacquiao coming with this stuff about the shoulder. So people have a tendency now to feel that they were ripped off, and it's boxing, it's the corrupt sport that we know it to be, and all. We never cease to hurt ourselves. And I'm a little angry at the Pacquiao people, Pacquiao himself. Why didn't he just keep his mouth shut? If you didn't cancel the fight, then you go in, you fight, you do the best you could, and then you walk away, you congratulate the guy who won, and that's the end of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And let it be. But I don't understand what there was to gain from revealing that he had a shoulder injury unless they thought that by doing that it would kindle some interest in a rematch. Nobody wants to see them again. Okay? And if that was the case, it backfired. Because all they did was, people felt that they got ripped off. And then, of course, the Nevada State Athletic Commission talking about pressing charges of perjury against him and all of this other nonsense. So it's just one of those situations that's unfortunate. And, I just don't understand what the motivation was for him to come out with that, after the fight was over. You lost the fight.
Right. And I hate it, Larry, when a fighter says, I don't want to make an excuse, but, and you're like, oh, God, here it comes. Here comes the excuse you don't want to make,
coming right behind it.
Right, we've said it, a guy like Tommy Hearns never mentioned that he broke his hand in a Hagler fight till years later, that's what you want, Well, every fighter has an excuse, it's sickening. Here's the other thing that I'm getting. People are either saying that it was an awful fight in terms of excitement, no excitement, and then I got the diehard Floyd fans are trying to convince everyone that what we saw, from Floyd's performance is that is the definition of the new Sweet Science. That's the way Sweet Science is. So if you're a true boxing fan, you have to appreciate it, because if you don't like that, then you're not a boxing fan, because if you want to see fights like Gotti Ward, just two guys standing toe-to-toe and slugging it out, that's not the Sweet Science. I don't think what Floyd does is the Sweet Science. I think he does it 85%. I think that he misses the boat when, he avoids the punch, but he's not in position to inflict damage on his opponent. He's across the ring. Then he comes back, he picks his shot, he lands one or two, he's across the ring. I think you mentioned earlier Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard could box just as good as anyone that stepped in the ring. He also had great defense, and he was willing to exchange. To me, he represented more of the sweet science a guy like Terrence Crawford does today. What's your thoughts? Is Floyd Mayweather showing us the sweet science of the 2000s?
Only part. Only halfway. He has tremendous defensive skills, but there's a whole lot missing in terms of the sweet science. You mentioned Sugar Ray Leonard again, one of my favorites. Okay, Sugar Ray Leonard, this guy was a cold killer in the ring. All right, Sugar Ray Leonard, you hit him, he hits you back. Floyd Mayweather does not demonstrate that the sweet science in its pure form. No. He does possess, in my opinion, tremendous defensive skills, but he doesn't put everything else with it.
Right.
The ultimate sweet science. And, I'm somewhat, when he claims, he made a claim that he's greater than Muhammad Ali and he's greater than Sugar Ray Robinson. And, in my opinion, there's no comparison. He would have trouble matching up to Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali in a class by themselves, it's almost insulting that he would make such a statement, because these were complete fighters. Floyd Mayweather has captured the imagination of the boxing fans and the sporting fans basically on his defensive skills, nothing else. When's the last time? I can't remember. Who's the last guy Floyd Mayweather stopped or knocked out? I can't remember. You know what I mean? When Floyd Mayweather is going to fight, you don't expect, or at least I don't expect to see him, in a slugfest and slugging and standing toe-to-toe. That's also a part of the sweet science. So I think he's very lacking in that respect.
Yeah, his last knockout was Victor Ortiz with his hands at his side, And what made me sick was that they were using that knockout as a promotional. I have DirecTV, and DirecTV was promoting the pay-per-view, and they were using that knockout, as hey, look at this power puncher. I thought it was sick. Hey, listen, before I ask you about the fight this weekend, I got an email. This came from my man Don Juan, okay, and he went on to this email, but there's a section here that I thought you could answer because it has to do with referees and stuff, and this is something that is right up your alley. So let me just read you this section and give me your thoughts. He says, if fights aren't boring enough, you have all of the hugging and pushing and the headlocks, which all are illegal, and in my opinion shouldn't be tolerated by the referees because it gives an unfair advantage to the violator. What's even more ridiculous is when you hear people say in the media that the other fighter should learn how to deal with those things. That's BS. The referee should deal with them with a warning followed by a point deduction and finally a DQ, like what almost took place in the Klitschko fight. With the referee doing that, it opens up offensive opportunities. The enforcement of these penalties are almost non-existent, to the point that many fighters are incorporating these rule violations into their defense. As is with any sport, the rules evolve. Boxing commissions should make these rules infractions more objective by enforcing it by the number of times it can be committed, rather than leaving it up to the referee to issue a warning, deduct a point, etc. What's your thoughts on Don Juan's statement there, Larry?
Well, Don Juan makes a good point, but that's the difference between your good referees and your not so good referees, like in anything else. It is up to the referee to give warnings and take points. And when you got a good referee who does that, you see less of the tactics that Don Juan is talking about. But if a referee just allows a fighter to constantly do that, then, that's what you have. if you notice in those fights where you have a good referee or an outstanding referee, because that's what they all should be, when he warns a fighter and then he finally takes a point away, that fighter usually stops doing what he has lost the point for. And if more referees were to do that, stop profiling and stop trying to steal the spotlight away from the fighters, then you'll see less of that. So Don Juan does make a good point, but that's my response to that.
You know, is there a point at which you as a commissioner, when you're watching a fight in private, will say to a referee, hey, listen, man, you warned this guy 7 times during the fight and you never took a point away. You know, would you reprimand a referee for something like that? Or even if you said, hey, this guy was holding him all night long, you didn't even warn him. You didn't even warn him once. Would as a commissioner, do you take that as your responsibility to keep your referees that are registered in your state, to conform to that stuff, or do you leave it 100% up to their discretion?
No. I have a very, very low tolerance for referees who are not on their game. Okay? If I have a referee who goes into a fight and I see too many things that he's not doing properly, then I sit his ass down. That's simple as that. Same thing with judges. You know, I have a very low tolerance for people who are not on their game. There's simply no other way to look at it. And I feel that if more commissions do that, we will see greater efforts by referees, and those who can't meet the standard should not be in the ring refereeing a fight. Simple as that. A lot of these problems happen because the commissions and the commissioners don't really step up and do what they're supposed to be doing, and that's because they don't have the confidence to do it because they never did it themselves. That's all. That's your problem, okay? You look around the country at the various boxing commissions and look at who's running boxing, and that goes for the sanctioning organizations and everything else. That's why you have a lot of these problems. Commissioners who never did the sport, never been referees, never been judges, so how are they going to criticize someone else simply because they don't have the confidence to do it? They don't feel confident enough to confront a referee and challenge him on some of the techniques that he's doing. And that's why referees just constantly do the things that they feel like they want to do. Simple as that.
Great point. Real quick, and then I'm going to ask you your thoughts on the fight this weekend. But Golden Boy officially started a lawsuit against Al Haymon, $300 million. They're basically saying that he's, infringing on the Muhammad Ali Act. And you and I have talked about this, and it certainly appeared that way. That he's kind of burning a candle from all different angles. And, they say that he's calling himself a manager, he's calling himself an advisor, he's calling himself a promoter. And this is what the meat of the lawsuit says. I have a feeling, Larry, that this is going to be a very important case for the way things are being run right now with Al Haymon. However, I personally believe that he's not going to get convicted because I've never heard Al. First of all, the guy is almost invisible. Nobody ever sees him. But he's never referred to himself as a manager or a promoter. He's always referred to himself as an advisor. I think what has to really come into play is the evaluation of his contracts. And I think that if they can prove that his contracts violate the Ali Act, they might have a case. Other than that, I don't think they have much of a case. What's your quick thoughts?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I can say this much. I guess Golden Boy has their reasons for, filing a suit. As you know, the ABC president, this Tim Lukenhoff, someone obviously convinced him to send a letter or something complaining but I guess he's supposed to be representing the commissions, but he don't represent me or the state of New Jersey. I can tell you that much right now. Okay? Now, as far as Al Haymon is concerned, hooray for Al Haymon. All right? What Al Haymon is doing for the sport of boxing.
Are you there, Larry? It looks like we just lost Larry.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I hear you again. Yeah, you said amen for Al Haymon, what he's doing for the sport of boxing, and then we lost you.
Okay. I said what Al Haymon is doing for the sport of boxing is something that we've been complaining about for years and years. And as I said before, I hope that he's successful. I'm going to pray for Al Haymon to be successful. Why wouldn't I, as a boxing commissioner? This guy is matching boxing all over television. He's rekindled the interest. What he's doing, he's keeping all of us in a job as far as boxing commissions are concerned. And as far as the legal, Al Haymon is a Harvard graduate. I'm sure that Al Haymon has looked at all of the nuances and looked at all of the ins and outs of what he's doing. And so, we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out in court. My money is on Al Haymon, and believe me, I hope that he wins. Because if he wins, boxing wins.
It's funny. You mentioned Tim and the ABC statement. They write, oh, he's bad, he's this, he's that, but we don't have the resources to go after him. It was like they show that they have no juice, no power at all. That ABC, but
we've been saying that all along.
No, I know. It's comical. It's comical.
I haven't been to, even when I was on the long run, okay. New Jersey, we didn't even belong to I never paid dues to those people. You got a bunch of assholes down there who don't know the first thing about the sport of boxing, and he's openly admitting they have no power to do anything. So why do you even exist?
Right? Why waste? They shouldn't have wasted the money on the ink and the paper, right?
Why are you existing? You have no power to do anything. Fighters still fight while on suspension. They still do all of the other things that you were supposedly created for. So why do you even exist? And the presidency has been shared back and forth between one or two guys for the last, 20, 25 years? So, I mean, what significance is the ABC?
No, you're...
And then I read the letter. That he wrote. It's quite obvious that there's somebody behind him that drafted the letter for him. All he did was sign his name. Okay? So, I mean, Billy, it's a waste of time even talking about the ABC, really.
No, I agree. One last question. The fight this weekend, Canelo Alvarez going up against James Kirkland. I don't know how long the fight's going to last. I don't know how great it's going to be, if it's going to be good or not, but I do know this. It is going to be entertaining. It's one of those fights that we know we're going to get some entertainment value out of. How do you see this fight going?
Well, Canelo is supposed to come. He's supposed to, but, this guy Kirkland can crack, man. And it's funny, the kid that he destroyed in Atlantic City is, I'm talking to you from my weigh-in right now. I just finished. Glenn Tapia is fighting at the Prudential Arena tomorrow night. And, Kirkland almost destroyed him in Atlantic City. And so it's going to be very interesting. But like I said, this Kirkland, he better not take him lightly. But Canelo brings a little bit more to the dance, I think. I think it's going to be a good fight.
How did Michael Soro, who's fighting Glenn Tapia, how did he look? We all know Glenn Tapia is an exciting young fighter. I love watching him. That's going to be a good event in Jersey. But how did Michael Soro look?
He looked good. Glenn Tapia was a pound over. So I'm still hanging around here now. He's got 2 hours to get down to 155 pounds. He was 156.
The fight was 154 plus 1. That's what they had?
It's one. No, I'm sorry. Glenn Tapio was 155. The fight is at 154. They have to come right on weight.
Right.
Because this is an NADO/USDA super welterweight title.
Right. Yeah, there's no people don't get it. When there's a title on the line, you can't weigh over. There's no you lose this title. That's just the way it is, Yeah,
you got to come right on. You got to be right on. And then we have another what is this? WBC Continental America's title with some young guy named Clayton Canseco and Sean Monahan. He's from over your way in New York or Long Beach, and that's a light heavyweight. So they were okay. So we're going to have a pretty exciting night over here at the Newark Prudential Arena tomorrow night, Billy. You can catch that on True TV.
Yeah, I'm going to be checking that out. We're going to do a post-fight show. We'll talk about all those fights. We're doing a post-fight after the Alvarez-Kirkland fight. And then I'm going to find my way to Atlantic City. I'll be talking to you about that in the very near future. So following up with what we spoke about before I went away.
Okay. Do me a favor, Billy. That email that I sent you, see if you can get me that number.
I will. I'll check your email in the morning. I'll have it. That was the okay. Yeah, I know which one it was. I will.
That's Carrier Circle up there. The Carrier Circle.
Yeah. I will get you all of them. You want to do the same one, right?
Anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
All right.
Anyone.
All right. Yeah, I'll get them for you. It'll be in your tomorrow morning's email.
Okay, Billy.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, man. Take care.
Take care. That's my man Larry Hazzard, the commissioner of New Jersey. He's also a Boxing Hall of Famer. And he's right there. He's taking the time out. He's at the weigh-in for the fights that are tomorrow night. Glenn Tapia against Michael Sorrow. And on the undercard, like he mentioned, Shawnee Monahan going up against Clayton Canseco. And that's a fight that is on our challenge. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But listen,